I have experienced flooding several times over the last 40 years, so have many of my neighbours. Can you tell me more about the work you are doing?
We understand how devastating flooding can be and the long-term impacts it can have both on people's homes, business, and well-being. This is why the work we are doing is so important. The Royal Borough of Windsor and Maidenhead and the Environment Agency have been exploring ways to reduce flood risk within these areas. This work is called Datchet and Hythe End Flood Improvement Measures.
What ways to reduce flood risk have you been looking into?
We have been considering a wide range of ways to reduce flood risk. We shared these with you last year. Some of them were suggested by your friends and neighbours. Flood modelling and other tools helped us to understand how well the options worked to reduce flood risk and with one another. Government guidelines also informed our methodology.
That seems like a lot of work. Can you tell me more about what you found out?
I'm glad you asked. Here is my colleague to explain a bit more.
Our research looked at reducing flood risk for a number of different scenarios, such as smaller, more frequent, and larger, less frequent floods. We found some ways are just not effective enough. Let me explain why we aren't taking some of these forward as main ways of reducing flood risks. We explored river channel improvements. Unfortunately, there isn't enough space to widen the channel because of proximity to homes and businesses. Reshaping and dredging would need to be done over a long stretch of the river to great depths and would have to be repeated frequently as silt builds up again. This would also be very disruptive, costly and harmful to local wildlife. Flood storage involves storing water either above ground or underground in the soil. There is simply not enough space in the study area to store the necessary volume to make this effective. There is also increased risk of flooding from groundwater and reduced water quality. Natural flood management is where natural techniques are used to store or slow the flow of water. We have looked into whether there is any way that targeted natural flood management could be done as part of our project, but on its own it would not be enough to reduce flood risk to the extent that is needed in this area. The two emerging options that could reduce flood risk are Option Purple, flood embankments and walls, and Option Orange, flood channel. Further investigation into these options doesn't guarantee they will happen. More research will need to be carried out to ensure they are possible to deliver. We already know from the previous work looking at a channel that it is expensive and would be difficult to fund.
Can you tell me a bit more about Option Purple?
We will be looking at raising and repairing existing walls and embankments and creating new ones.
How will you ensure it fits in with the surroundings?
We will make sure any option taken forward is sensitive to public and private spaces and considers access to and from the Thames. It is also essential that we do not increase flood risk elsewhere because of our work. Possible locations for Option Purple could be in and around Datchet, Raisbury and Ham Island. Next time we meet, we aim to be able to provide you with details of location, scale, height and benefits. We have begun to look at where it would be possible to put flood walls and embankments, but have not yet decided on exact locations. They would likely need to be in the approximate areas that are shown on the map. In some places, existing walls could be adapted, and in other places, we might need new walls or where there is space embankments. These designs will evolve based on feedback and new information that arises.
How is Option Orange different?
Option Orange, a flood relief channel is built alongside a river to divert flow away from areas at risk of flooding. It looks very much like a normal river. During a flood, some flow is contained in the River Thames, but some water moves through the floodplain. With a flood relief channel in place, some of the overland flow would be diverted and rejoin the main river further downstream, avoiding flooding properties and businesses on the way.
So this is similar to the work done previously?
You are right. We will look at what has already been done and see if this could work in the future. For both options, we will look for opportunities to include other benefits beyond reducing flood risk, such as improving wildlife habitat. Doing this will also allow us to comply with relevant legislation and attract other funding opportunities. More importantly, it will involve the community to ensure we make the most of any work we are doing to make local improvements.
It looks like you will not be able to reduce flood risk everywhere. What else will you be doing?
You are correct. The scale of flooding is so large that we cannot completely remove the risk. With climate change, the frequency and severity of flooding will increase. We will look to build up resilience within the community now. Increasing resilience means taking actions to reduce damage and disruption caused by flooding. For example, you might have heard about property flood resilience. It involves making physical changes to properties to reduce water getting in.
What other ways to increase resilience are being considered?
There are ways we could help make it easier for the community and local responders to prepare for, respond to, and recover from flooding. Improving existing flood warnings and alerts, reviewing current emergency planning arrangements, and developing more community flood plans would be beneficial. There may be opportunities to raise public awareness and educate members of the community too. We want to support flood wardens with further resources or information that they need to help them respond to flooding and continue their invaluable work.
I appreciate the effort you have put into this process so far, but how would this be paid for?
Funding. We want options to reduce flood risk to attract the maximum of public funds we are eligible for. That means justifying how the project compares with the benefits achievable in other parts of the country. We are continuing to work with the Council, our funding partner, to seek additional sources like grants and partnerships. There's plenty of things to get on with. To find out more, or if you have any questions, visit our website, speak to us, or email the project team. We are always happy to help. Remember, it is not possible to protect against every flood, but we are determined to reduce the risk of flooding and help explore how the necessary funding can be secured. Datchet to Hythe End, flood improvement measures. Let's build a more resilient community together.